Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Stam, Arcane, Promise Part 2. So that's what we're going to check out today. This comes off of the Known Learned album that came out in 2015, though I don't think I've heard Arcane at all, so this will be interesting just to dive in and get a first taste of some of Arcane's art. Let's dive in and see what Arcane is bringing to the table today. I'm curious if that opening is part of the track that came before it. The piano line playing an expansion of the guitar riff. So we have alternating 6 and 7 beat bars. In a sense, you could say we're working on like 13/4 for our time signature. And this is the third different variation on this riff. They're definitely getting a lot of mileage out of it. I love that. It's really feeling like we were extending out that bar. All of this is in groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Beautiful vocals too. Reminds me of Leprous's vocalist. A little bit of counterpoint on this new guitar line. Lots of tension there to take us out of that. That sub bass at the bottom. The ghost notes on the snare are really nice here. So this seems to be one of the main ways that they build an idea, just a rhythmic device on the guitars, moving through the chord on this rhythm, and allowing the vocals and the piano to deal with any sort of melodic elements above that. A little bit of tension. Ooh, the bell. A little bit of tension here, and we're working with a 7/8 time signature as well, so playing around with the oddity of that. Transferring the piano line to the guitar. Yeah. So this is actually in 4/4 with shifting accent patterns. An evolution of this musical concept. This driving intensity. And this actually harkens back to the beginning. With the synth and the strings, the double bass kicks, and the light vocals. Yeah. This will be the only time that I bring this up here, just because I don't want to spend too much time in comparative conversation, but a lot of this does sound very Leprosy to me, and it would not surprise me if this group was inspired by Leprous. A lot of it just feels like something Leprous could make, not just in like the composition side of things, but also in the vocal delivery, the tones of the guitars, the style in the drums. The constant movement, almost melodic element of the drum work at times is very reminiscent of Leprous's drummer. So yeah, I just want to get that out of the way. If you're a fan of Leprous, you've probably heard that in here too. And if you're a fan of Leprous, you probably even heard more examples than I did, as I've only heard half a dozen songs of Leprous's. But it's just such a clear parallel that it would not surprise me if this band was influenced by them. With that out of the way, let's talk about some of the things that this band is doing. Primarily, I think we're going to be talking about three distinct areas, which is rhythm and time, atmosphere writing, and melodic writing. I think those are the three elements that really stand out to me, because a lot of this track is kind of similar. We're either focusing on something kind of genty, where we're focusing on a rhythmic idea. Maybe the vocals have a melody, maybe there's a solo instrument, but everything on the foundation is just primarily focused on this rhythm. Or we're really focused on a vocal melody. These are those sections where the energy kind of comes down, the instruments kind of thin out their layers and reduce their impact on the song and kind of create an atmosphere for a melody to thrive in, to really take the spotlight on. Or we're focusing on something very atmospheric, where there's a lot of moving parts all coming together, and it's complexity through simplicity to achieve a very unified emotion built up by a lot of small, simple parts. And so I really think that those three ideas make up pretty much every part of this song, and that's really the best places to look at if you want to understand what this song is doing and how it's effective at doing that. So the first one I want to look at is time, because this is going to bleed a little bit into atmosphere eventually when we get on that topic. We kick off the song with an alternating 6 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it gives us this little extension. It isn't a really long extension. It doesn't really feel like it extends much, but it is there. Throughout the song, we'll actually dance around both 6s and 7s. And I'm curious if 13 is important to this song in any way. Maybe there's something, a band member likes 13. I don't know. But the idea of 6 and 7 being present on their own, but also being present in this compound meter, in this 13, it shows up pretty much everywhere. I think the only other time signature I really picked up on in this track was a 4/4, which was actually alternating 7 and 9. We'll touch on that in a second. But we are either in 7 sections, which I frequently felt like we were missing a beat. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and you kind of like lurch into that next thing. Because if you divide that in half, and we just look at every other beat, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and we kind of like, we're losing half of that final beat, half of that 4. It feels like we're missing something. And most of the time that they use 7 exclusively, it does have that feeling of missing something. I'm really curious how that's going to play into the idea of promise. I think just based off of that word itself, there's a lot of ways to look at the idea of missing something. But I want you to keep that in mind, promise as an idea, as a musical concept to explore artistically, because we're going to touch on that when we hit atmosphere later. But right here, the idea of something missing, I think, it showcases in the rhythm in several places of this song. But here at the beginning, the 7 is played as an extension. We have a group of 6, and then we have a group of 7. What I find interesting here is that they didn't do the 6-6-1 idea, where it feels like we're extending this extra beat, but actually a 6-7. Somehow it feels like we have, again, dividing it in half, we have 3 beats followed by 3.5. We're not getting that full extra beat. And so, once again, it feels like we're lurching back into the 6. I wish I could, well, I can, but I would want to go back to that opening section to kind of figure out exactly what's going on there, particularly in contrast to and with the knowledge of the rest of the track, what else they're doing with the time signature, because I find that this opening section is sort of unusual. Usually when you have a set amount of beats in a bar and then you have more beats in the next bar, it's going to feel like an extension by contrast. Very different than if we started on the 7 and went to the 6. That'll feel like we removed something, but we would be going to an even number, which could feel more resolute. But that's not where we went. We went from an even to an odd. We went from a lower number to a higher number. In almost any song you see this, it's going to feel like an extension. We're going to stay in that idea longer than we expect, and it kind of feels like we're hovering for a moment before being dropped back into the music. And that's just not the way that that section felt to me. So I find that to be interesting. They do, however, use this feeling of elevation by holding out a note. It just isn't on this extended beat. It's in the middle of the 7. And that's kind of interesting too. Again, just a lot of unusual ways. Unusual is probably, yeah, that's the right word. Not heard often in this context. So yeah, unusual ways of using the time signature in that opening part. Most of the rest of the track, we have this 13 compound, we have isolated 7s, which is just that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You just kind of lurch into the beginning again. They loved to do that. And we had the 6, which kind of created some stability in places. But there at the end, we had 4, 4. It was the penultimate section to the track. And it was actually groupings of 7 and 9, which you add them together, you're going to get 16. That's divisible by 4. And how they play this is really interesting, because if you just divide it into 4 beats, it's going to feel like you have an accent on beat 1, and then the and of 4 that kind of gets hung over into the next bar. And so it just kind of comes in half of a beat earlier, and it feels like you're lurching into that. It's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, kind of that lurch into that bar again. But this time, instead of following it up with another 7, we followed up with a 9 to fill out the entirety of this 4, 4. It does feel a bit longer, but it also, if you're counting in 4, it feels right. And I really like that. It's almost as if we had taken the ideas that we presented earlier with the 7, with the 13, and said, okay, those were moments where we were missing something. But here we have formed it back together. In the second to last moment of the song, we have a full 4/4 time signature. It feels complete, still slightly off. I'm curious how they're going to play around with that thematically, but it does have a feeling of completion to it, an extension of those rough ideas earlier, those rough rhythms, into something cohesive. And I really like that perspective, not just going for 4/4 stability, but adapting the original asymmetric, odd time signature into something more rooted and grounded and stable without actually changing the rhythm at all. It's a neat idea, and I like the artistic element behind it. Now, a lot of this does lend itself to gentler ideas, and there's a lot of that in here. I find that these sections work really well on an atmospheric component, which I think is what they're primarily there for. But a lot of sections will have these odd time signatures with these syncopated rhythms, and the guitars will just sit on one note, play the rhythm, and then move to the next note. And these are often the root tones for the chords. And I suppose that's a good segue to take this into atmosphere and harmony. The rhythmic devices help tell the harmonic elements. They help give us the chord progression. The chords in this song end up feeling very hopeful to me, pretty much throughout, across the board. Sections like this will usually play out the chord progression through root tones, and maybe the piano will give us some arpeggiation so that we can get more information about what key we're in. but the vocals will give us the melody on top. And a lot of these sections are really designed to create an atmosphere and allow the vocals to shine in them. These can be big sections with a lot of harmonic layers, or it could be really small sections where it kind of bring the energy down a little bit. But regardless, there really isn't anything that's pulling my attention aside from a vocal melody or a lead guitar line. The rhythmic repetition and well, it's not arrhythmic, it's groovy, but it's groovy in an odd kind of way. That's Gent's whole MO, is syncopated rhythms. It doesn't really grab my attention. And the fact that the notes are just one note per 2 bars or whatever, that doesn't grab my attention either. So my brain's looking for something of movement, and it typically lands on the melody lines. And the vocalist is fantastic. The guitar solo that showed up at like minute 3 or 4, something like that, really great melodic storytelling. Nice linear movement, great pacing and flow throughout it. I really love that. It's a tasteful solo that has a little bit of showing off, but is primarily there to support what the story the song wants to tell. I feel like the vocal lines do that as well. We get a lot of expressiveness out of the vocals. I don't know what the vocalist was saying, but I could always kind of get a feeling based on how they were delivering it. And I think both the vocals and the guitars do a great job of telling the story, but really it's the atmosphere that builds a lot of the relationship between the listener and the art. And in this case, I find the atmosphere, the emotional component to consistently be positivity, which is not a term I typically describe music as. It's not just that the song evokes positive feelings, but it seems to evoke positive feelings in darkness, about having hope for the future, possibly, about knowing that things aren't great now, but they will be. Maybe even coming back to the idea of a promise, it is the need or the drive to fulfill a promise, maybe one that was even broken at one time, and you want to make things right. And so we end up hearing a lot of atmospheres that are vast and open-ended. Nothing in this really feels closed or shut. It doesn't feel tight. It doesn't feel contained or grounded. There's a lot of extra room. And this is aided by the soundscape as well. The production on this song is massive. There's just so much room for instrumentation in here. And we do get to hear that as well. Aside from the rock band, we also have a piano, we have general synths, we have string synths, and these help fill out the extra sound and widen out the overall atmosphere of the song. But I find that this feeling of optimism throughout the track is pervasive, even in some of the sections where I even commented, oh, they're kind of going for a darker sound, or they're introducing some tension or weight or something. It's sort of short-lived. It's a little moment of faltering before remembering the positivity, the joy, the optimism about the good things that will happen. And I find that to be an interesting thing because, like I said, it's just so rare for me to say, oh, this song sounds like optimism. Joy? Yeah. Positivity? Sure. But optimism? It's not a word I use too often to describe music. And this song just absolutely is the first thing that popped in my head, honestly. They do a great job of capturing that in a lot of the external sounds, in the chord progressions, in the pianos, and the synths. Yeah, just, I was sold. I don't know a single word that was sung here, but I was captivated by the performance, by the atmosphere, and all of it just worked phenomenally well together. Now, there is the bass guitar. I haven't really brought them up much at all, but I like this bass work. The bass sounds great. has very cool lines, tends to support the song at every moment though. And I think that's what I love most about it. It is a selfless bass. There are some moments for it to shine, sometimes that we get a little bit of extra leadership out of it. Particularly, I remember when the energy came down, we kind of hit a quieter part of the song. The bass was really resonant here and helped push the track forward alongside the vocals. But for the most part, the bass does have moving lines that never take spotlight. They're always there to support the song, to make it feel stronger, to make it feel larger, to direct it, to give it the foundation to build off of. And I love that about the bass here. I don't know what it is about this song in particular. The bass being a support or foundation for a track isn't entirely uncommon. It shows up a lot. But in this track in particular, I don't know if it's just because of the vastness of it, the size of the song, the scope of the song, the concept of optimism that permeates through the entire track, for all of that to sit on the bass. I honestly think if you found the stems for this track and you remove the bass, the song's going to kind of fall apart. Not that it's going to sound bad or that rhythmically it's going to be disjointed or that you're not going to get the harmonic information. All that's present everywhere else too, it's just not going to feel right. It's going to feel empty. It's going to feel hollow, a hollow promise, hollow optimism. It's going to completely change the vibe, the feeling of the track itself. The bass is incredibly important, but such an invisible part of this song, especially given all of the melodies that are going on and all of the textures and layers. But its part is no less important. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to bring up. We got textures, we got harmony, melody, rhythms. I mean, that's pretty much all of it right there. Oh, just a quick shout out, I suppose, for everyone. The drumming in here, as I mentioned earlier, beautiful. Quasi-melodic at times, really great ideas, always having new rhythmic devices to show off and pushing the song forward when it needs to and allowing it to be still when it needs that. The vocalist is just a freaking chameleon, dude. He's got those high notes, he's got his falsetto, but he has a really warm resonant tone that he can move into as well. He's got the mixed head and chest that sounds really great. Just phenomenal. The guitar work I've praised, the melody writing in here, the bass that just wax poetically about him. Everybody in here is doing a fantastic job. And even the, I'm going to assume, keyboardist who plays the piano, the synth, and the strings, I mean, they do such an important job at crafting atmosphere. The song would be very different without them. So yeah, just kudos all around on this one, I suppose. I'm quite intrigued about Arcane just from a musical perspective, and I'd love to hear if there is a Promise Part 1, especially given the intro to this track, which felt bizarre. I almost forgot how strange the first 10 seconds were. The song honestly feels like it starts 10-15 seconds in rather than that first opening chord progression. Anyways, let me hit some lyrics on this and then we'll wrap this one up. All right. Lyrically, we're looking at a song about two people trying to find one another. The opening talks about our narrator who is, well, it's actually told from third person, so not our narrator, but a person who whispers over his shoulder, "Hope is all I have," but the words landed on no ears. They were lost in the wind, heard by no one. Then it states, "She waited." It is distinctly stated that the person who said, "Hope is all I have," he called those words. So we have two people right here in the first verse. One says something the other does not hear. Verse 2, though, says that he sang to the silence at night, and an answer would never come, till caught on the wind came the word, a whisper, the willful, "Come on home." Over and gone, she waited. So we have someone who's lost, calling out to someone else, And then we have another person calling for this person in order to help them find their way home. Now it talks about in the chorus that he would travel far to find her, but that, despite his promise being that he would meet her, nothing changes. Over and on, over and gone. That's just repeated constantly in the chorus. Nothing changes. It mentions that he sang his own funeral pyre. Caught in a spiderweb family ties, lost in dreams of a child with her eyes, she waits. Finally, the bridge, I think, starts to clue me in to what this is actually a metaphor for. It says, "Come to me, my softest memory, my sweetest mistake. Eyes open, please wait, don't fade and wait for me." The outro states, "A promise kept is all that's left, so by the window she waits." And to me, I interpret this as the male character being in a coma, perhaps. And this female character, I'm not sure the relationship, but by the bedside, talking to him daily, waiting for him to wake up, asking him to come to me, open your eyes, come back to this world. Don't fade. Just come to me. And when he doesn't, she sits by the window and waits. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. That's how I interpret this. And I think that does a great job at sort of giving an identity to the area that the male character is in. There seems to be no one anywhere. He calls out and there's no response anywhere around him. There's very, very few places on this planet where you could go that are just completely devoid of anything to ever hear your words, human or not. But the fact that they can communicate in a sense, he can hear whispers of her. Unless there's some sort of a magical, fantastical angle to this, my mind immediately goes to a coma. People talk about being able to hear their loved ones talking to them and having memories of that when they wake up from comas. So that's where my mind goes, and it's a bittersweet track. I mean, you can definitely feel in the lyrics the closeness of these two people and how much they want to be together again. But there's also the negative element to that too. And coming back to the idea of optimism, that's kind of what I get at the end here. There is a promise that's left. It needs to be kept. This person will eventually wake up. I will wait by the windowsill day by day and wait for it to happen. It has to. Tomorrow might be the day. And it's that optimism that keeps this person, that hope that keeps them going. Really beautiful. And I think it ties nicely into the atmospheric elements too, not just with the hope and optimism, but some of the brighter moments and the lower moments, the darker moments and the more ecstatic moments. It's all of the emotions of waiting for something like this and trying to get through the day, knowing, or hoping at least that maybe the next time you see this person, they'll be awake in the bed. Yeah, that comes together really nicely. It still makes me curious about Promise Part 1, though. I want to know what happened there. If that provides any extra context or maybe even recontextualizes this relationship between the two and maybe what the distance is. Maybe there is a fantastical element to it. I don't know. These are just my thoughts, though, of Arcane's Promise Part 2. What did you think of this track? Did anything stand out to you? Did you enjoy it? Is there something you'd like to add on to what I said or maybe correct me on? maybe you just have a different perspective on things, please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree, takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.